Hello, writers. Come right with me. My name is Mykela Greenwood. I create worlds for mind adventures. Welcome to my channel, Write with Mykela. I'm excited to have you join me on my channel, so don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell so you can go on this journey with me. Today, we're going to discuss a few terms or ideas, and then we will add to a down soldier. The first word that we are looking at today is inextricably. Inextricably as an adverb means in a way that is impossible to disentangle, separate, or untangle, or get free from. Describing things that are closely linked or intertwined. They cannot be considered apart, like memories or fates. This term comes from Latin. In Latin, it means not to unravel. So this term signifies something fundamentally and tightly bound together, often in complex or intricate way. Some synonyms are inseparably, intrinsically, intricately. So there was intrinsically and intricately, involved, indivisibly, knottedly, and that is spelled with a K-N, not like a knot in your shoelace. Knottedly, not the one spelled with an N. This is K-N. K-N-O-T-T-I-L-Y, just for clarification. Indistinguishably, completely, irretrievably, and perplexingly. Now, a lot of those have like the ably or ibly or whatever, so that's because of the adverb. Now, a simple example of this inextricably is a fish in water. A fish out of water will die. Water is inextricably part of a fish's life. In our story, what things are inextricably intertwined? How about the faith of the main? I asked you a question. So think of your stories. In our stories, what things are inextricably intertwined? Now let's think. How about the faith of the main ring and the other rings bound together within the Lord of the Rings? If Sauron regained control of the one ring, he could control the others, right? So the rings were inextricably intertwined until the one was destroyed. For most of Stargate, Tilks, the host, and his Gua'uld parasite were inextricably intertwined. The parasite would help him heal. Now, so that meant that Tilk's health depended on the Gua'uld until later in the series when Tilk could receive Tetonin to maintain his health. Now, sometimes the places where people grow up are inextricably part of inextricably part of them. Their past is part of them. Even when they move away, and they feel certain aspects of the place deep within their bones. Some people are inextricably in friendships or marriages, either through undying love or power or prenuptials, or in some settings where the female is sold to the male and she has no rights. Only the husband has rights. In this case, the female is inextricably attached to the husband, but not necessarily the husband to the wife. So what is your setting? I just started a book, The Lost Bookstore by It's not Evie, it's Eve. Eve Woods. And when I wrote this, I'd only read 2 chapters. But the setting is between women belonging to their husbands or their fathers as property or baggage, and women being able to get jobs and work. So it's like one, you could go get a job, but the other one, it was starting to get to where women could get the job, but not. The brother of the main character, there's like 3 main characters actually, wants Opaline to get married and stop burdening the family that he's now in charge of because their father is no longer alive. Opaline suggests getting a job. I'll get a job. I'll help pay for things. The brother and the mother vehemently disagree. They're not in the new age thinking. So this is kind of like, it's right in that line where the women can get the jobs. But some families are still in the older thinking. Opaline runs away before her brother imposes an inextricable marriage on her. Now I'm enjoying this story, but it's like Opaline is one chapter, then the next chapter is Martha, and she had an abusive husband that she ran away from, but Opaline's like in the 1920s. Martha is in 9 months ago was the timeline. And then the third character is Henry. And Opaline ran away. Her brother found her. She got help to run away again. So that's where I am in the book. Martha ran away. Her husband found her because Opaline, her brother, found her because he was setting up the marriage. And Martha, her husband, because she hadn't gotten a divorce, she just ran away because he was beating the life out of her. So that can still happen today. Men can beat women, especially in certain religions. Now, in real life, we humans are becoming inextricable with the data that the internet and cameras maintain about our daily life, with Google asking you, the first time I was abhorred, Google asked me if it should mark a place on the map as my workplace. And it's like, since you drive here Monday through Friday between business hours, would you like us to mark this as your workplace? I politely told Google, no. Our phones listen to us. Scammers record our voices. Oh, like you pick up the line and you say hello. They're recording your voice. And then they're going to come on the line and say, can you hear me? And you say yes. Yes. Then they play the yes for something else, like you agreed to something you didn't agree to. And you could have financial troubles or court troubles or all kinds of things. So, side note, do not say yes on the phone. If you answer the phone, a lot of times if I don't know the number, I just wait until I hear them click to the place. And then they're like, hello, how are you today? And I'm like, what's the scam today? I don't say, yes, I can hear. No, you're breaking up. I can't hear you. What's the scam today? You know, I come off with these kinds of things. But once they have our voices, AI generates videos. Look at my picture's right there on the thing. AI can take my video, extract my picture, extract my voice, make it say what it wants me to say. So it can generate videos with our voices and our likeness. It is practically impossible to extricate ourselves from this deluge of recording activity. Then you add that Elon Musk and the WEF want to put chips in our brains. so they can record our thoughts too. That's just too much. I'm not getting a chip. Not getting a chip. Another example in real life that is more innocuous is, have you ever been to the beach and tried to extricate the sand from your body and clothes? The sand is very inextricable for days or weeks. You can vacuum your car 3 or 4 times and still find a load of sand. Side note, we bring gallons of water to pour on ourselves on the sidewalk to get off as much sand as possible before getting in the car. Leave a comment on what you do to leave sand at the beach. Now, several weeks ago, we discussed infiltrate. Once a spy infiltrates his enemy troops or fortress, he might become inextricably part of the organization to make extrication impossible for the enemy not to notice. So it's like he or she has to stay, because if they try to extricate themselves, then the enemy notices and then the enemy tries to kill them. Dependency on drugs or depression can inextricably devour people. How do you reach those people, and help pull them out? No one can pull someone out without the person wanting help and working to extricate himself or herself. Is there some life purpose that someone can point to in order to help? Or is the person so inextricably connected to his or her addiction or depression that no help will avail? You are the writer. You have to decide how inextricable or how impossible things or people are with other things or people. Leave a comment on a show, book, or movie where there is an inextricable relationship. Our next term is persnickety. Persnickety as an adjective means placing too much emphasis on trivial or minor details or matters. In other words, fussy or meticulous in rigid demands for perfection, order, or specific etiquette. Some synonyms are fussy, difficult, finicky, over fastidious, particular, faddish, fanatical, dainty, punctilious, hair splitting. I told you I've split hairs a few times, right? Exacting, demanding, critical, nitpicking, and several more. Antonyms are easygoing and laid back. Another definition is requiring a particularly precise or careful approach. Now, this is a characteristic of a character. Your character can be persnickety about certain things and not others, or he or she can be persnickety about everything. In The Big Bang Theory, Sheldon Cooper was persnickety about a great many things, including where he sat on the couch in the apartment. There is also Ebenezer Scrooge in A Christmas Carol, or Hannibal Lecter in Silence of the Lambs. And of course, we can't forget Grumpy in the original Snow White, Seven Dwarfs, or Oscar the Grouch on Sesame Street, who dedicated himself to messiness and being contrary. So that's still persnickety. It's not clean and exact, but he wanted it messy. Sometimes we need someone persnickety, as in Dr. Emmett Brown in Back to the Future, as He was extremely persnickety about his scientific equipment and calculations. Homeowners associations are quite persnickety because they have too much power that they should not have. Leave a comment on some persnickety behavior from someone in your life. You don't have to name the person. That's probably wise not to name the person. So, in a house that I lived in before, so it's now this homeowners association. I also lived in before. They gave us a letter that we had not edged and that we had grass growing over the curb. So we went outside and looked at the curb and found one strand growing over the curb. We pulled the one. But that was a little bit too persnickety. It's like they could have just gotten out of the car and pulled it themselves instead of costing everybody money by sending letters. So homeowners are quite persnickety, but it's a power thing for them. Leave a comment on characters in a show, book, or movie who are a character who is, or characters who are persnickety, and say if it adds comedy, as in The Big Bang Theory, or it adds something else, like the power struggle. Now, let's turn to your stories with a down soldier. First, remember that all works shared on the channel are copyright protected, so there's no worry. Send in your writings to writewithmykela@gmail.com. I look forward to reading your stories on the channel. We've written on this 26 times. We started this story in Season 3.1, Episode 11. I will list the rest of the episodes in the details below. If you remember back, the first writing prompt was to imagine a soldier lying on the battlefield or just knocked out, and he came to after a big battle, and we went for there. He could have woken up in the hospital or an ambulance or in a ditch with his friend or whatever, but he came to after the big battle. We don't have a shared plot for this, but I hope you are having fun. I hope you have an intriguing protagonist and an active goal or problem, and you have stakes of some kind, plus a ticking clock. And all of that is interrelated, maybe not inextricably interrelated, but interrelated, and building to your climax. These are the elements to a good story, along with some good editing. Now, if you are a veteran of war, I would really like to read any memories you have for such an event. It might help you get the feelings and images out and to share them. And it would help me to see what the real thing is like. If you don't want me to read your writings on the channel, that is your choice, but I would still love to read them. Pause the video. Write a page or two, or at least a paragraph. A lot of writers aim for 500 words a day. Yesterday I got in 3,000, but I had been reading and reading and reading to kind of get back into the flow of the story. So I hadn't been getting very many words in any one day, but yesterday I got 3,000, so that made up for it. So, see if you can use this writing prompt to meet your own personal writing goal. Come back, and I'll read what I wrote. Welcome back, writers. Now let me read what I wrote. Kamek kept watching the lizard people surge forward as blue vapor floated to him. It was getting too close for him to continue to hold the book. He went to slide the book down in his boot once more, but the book burst into green flames, and the flames burned around his hand for several minutes, then went out. Kamek didn't have time to think about that. He pulled his sword and readied himself. The book had infused itself with him. and it gave him the knowledge of the spells and chants that he needed. Kamek focused on the battles. He watched the different parts and didn't realize that chants escaped his lips. He saw the surge of the lizard people and then the expansion of the area for their new kingdom. Vicanthace wanted the people helping the soldiers to have protection. She saw Kamek in the fountain, and she saw him when the book burst into flames. She quickly reached in her pocket and found the book. Vicanthace glanced at the fountain, and a lot seemed to be happening. She motioned to Kipling, told him he had to read her book after she flipped to a certain section. Kipling glanced at Jules and Sartla. "Tell me what you see," he said to them as he sat closer to Miss V, and bent his head down to read. Kipling quietly started reading to himself, and he pronounced words under his breath. There were several words he didn't know. Burdock sat near him and whispered words when Kipling had trouble. Kipling looked at Burdock a few times. He wanted to ask the meaning. Then he turned his head to the fountain, and some understanding started bubbling through. Vicanthace watched the fountain, and she could hear Kipling's whispers, especially once Burdock was helping with pronunciation. She glanced at Kipling reading, and then she went closer to the fountain. She didn't really think about what she was doing, because if she had, she would have stopped herself. She reached her hand down in the fountain and touched Kamek's shoulder. Kamek started to jump through his skin, but the touch he felt was gentle, and suddenly his mind was filled with a different set of thoughts. Kamek glanced around to see if he could know where the tunnels came out. He hadn't a clue. He thought with Wavestor. Wavestor sent thoughts about the plaques, how to spot them. Of course, Wavestor added that only the royal bloodline could see them. Kamek wanted to help with the fighting, but he also wanted to help the fallen soldiers of this army that was helping him in Malls. Kamek jerked his head and looked in the woods. He realized he didn't see any statues. That might explain the soldiers. But what of the horses? He remembered there had been several horses in the barn, but the barn was too small for the number of horses he saw now. Kamek pulled back out of the soldiers and rode around. He kept his eye on the lizard people. I probably should say eyes. On the lizard people. He thought, his eyes on the lizard person. Eyes on the lizard person he thought was the woman. She seemed to be a leader of sorts. Kamek saw a plaque in the distance. He tried to distinguish the thought stream in his mind for Vicanthace. He thought, Plaque 3? Then he set a spell for a shield around the soldier lying on the ground and included the area around the plaque. Vicanthace pulled back and realized she had touched the water. She gasped and covered her mouth with her hand. A maid said, "You are the queen to be. You have touched the king. Did he think something to you?" "Plaque 3, said Vicanthace. She sat back down near Kipling, still looking at the fountain. She asked, "What did I miss?" Burdock assured her she didn't miss much, because everyone watched her touch Kamek. Then he quickly summed what he felt she hadn't heard. Vicanthace received another plaque number after several minutes, and she told the next maid. Kamek saw people rise out of the ground and lift the body and then disappear back in the ground. He hoped the lizard people couldn't get down there. As their boundary expanded, the soldiers weren't packed as tightly, which made fighting easier because the soldiers didn't want to accidentally hit their own. Kamek fought several lizard people. Then he came face to face with the woman. He used his magic to slice off her extra long claws as she jumped at him. The woman was in the middle of her leap when he saw her claws drop away, so she pulled a knife she had held at her belt. Kamek blocked her and pushed her to the side, but both flew to the ground, and Kamek landed hard. The woman raised the knife and came down. Kamek blocked with the hand that he infused the book with. and green flames engulfed her arm. Her blade landed in his shoulder. The woman collapsed on Kamek's chest. Kamek looked up and saw Moss standing over him and the woman. Moss slung the woman's body to the side and helped up his friend. There was no time for talk or thanks. They both mounted their horses and turned back to the fighting. Vic and Thace had covered her mouth when the woman knocked Kamek off his horse. She was grateful to Moss, and she wondered about the green flames. But now she saw blood running down Kamek from his shoulder. She thought it was probably the edge of the shoulder where the armor connected, and she knew it was his left arm. Vic and Thace looked down at the book in Kipley's lap. He was still dutifully reading. She paused him, flipped a few pages. Kipley started reading again. Vic and Thace saw Jules had jumped up when Kamek had fallen off his horse. Now Jules was behind the stone bench. He had found some sticks somewhere, and he was tapping out Kamek's part of the battle. Vic and Thace glanced at Sartla. She had the rabbit lifted off her lap, and she was squeezing the creature. Finally, Vic and Thace's ears heard the words she knew she needed. This time she consciously knelt down for the fountain. She reached and touched Kamek's shoulder and said the chant. Kamek felt weak and dizzy as he entered the battle. He knew he was losing blood, but he couldn't leave the soldiers. But he felt the warmth at the place of the wound. Kamek looked down at his shoulder. He saw a woman's hand hovering there. He felt thread pull against his skin. He leaned his head down and saw a golden glowing needle and golden dust thread. Vic and Thace was somehow magically sewing his wound closed. Kamek closed his eyes and put a hand over hers and thought his thanks. He didn't engage an enemy for the next few minutes to let her finish. He still felt dizzy, and he was becoming nauseous, but he would fight as long as he could. Okay, writers, that is what I'm adding today. The word count was 1163 words for this section. See how you can get your 500 or your 1,000 real easily. Now, leave a comment on the book Bursting into Flames, and if the green color means anything. Leave a comment on the plaques that only royals can see. Leave a comment on if you think the lizard people can watch the bodies go into the ground and learn how to get in the tunnels themselves. Leave a comment on Vic and Thace sewing Kamek's wound in the middle of battle. With magic, of course, but that would be cool if we could. We had our soldiers out on the battlefield, and the wives could look in a fountain or something, and they could touch their husband and start chanting and sewing them up while they were in battle. That would be really good. Of course, we don't want wars and battles and stuff, but they happen. Now, join me Wednesday for a book club discussion of 1984. Join me Friday for Elementals. Join me Tuesday for a little jargon and adding to your story with your setting. Leave a comment below on which story is your favorite so far. It could be your favorite that you were writing, or your favorite on the channel, or a favorite you have read. Also, leave a comment on what you are currently reading. I am reading book 8 on Tanya Cap's Magical Cures mystery series. These are short. The Kindle that I have is like, only this big, and it has large font, and it says it's 200 pages. So if it was in a book like this, it would probably be like 80 pages at most. So it's little bitty books, and after a while, the books are the same. I'm getting a little bit bored, and they're fairly predictable. But I also just started the 2 other books. One I mentioned above, The Lost Bookshop by Eve Woods. I keep putting her name as Evie. It's Eve Woods. And another Audible book. And it is the Crescent City series. And I actually, by the time I'm reading this, I have finished book 1, A House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas, and the Maas is M-A-A-S. And now I'm reading A House of Sky, and I don't remember the second part of that title. Anyway, I'm reading the second book in the Crescent City series. So, leave a comment on if you recommend a book or author. Also, have you read any classics that you would recommend? I recently finished Crime and Punishment as an Audible book. If you choose that one, Audible is probably better with all the Russian names, but I don't recommend this one. The protagonist is the murderer, and there is no Western happy ending. The protagonist ends up in prison in Siberia, where he supposedly is redeemed. But during the story, the protagonist was all over the place emotionally and in his thoughts. It was not a protagonist I ever rooted for. He was despicable in many scenes. But then he was randomly charitable. He'd give money away. And like I said, the book, it's not a book I recommend. But if you pick it up, Audible makes all the Russian names easier to digest. Also, I have comments on Audible. Like, okay, if I'm reading this and I read to a part and I'm almost like, what did they say back there? I can flip back to the page. Oh, yeah. Okay. And I did that in the Lost Bookshop because they were the second two characters, Martha and Henry. Henry actually is looking for Opaline, and Carl's Lease is her maiden name, but he's looking for Opaline Gray. And I hadn't remembered that at that point because she hadn't taken on the name Gray. But she meets a guy, Fitzpatrick or something. So I flipped back, like, was that name that Henry was looking for Fitzpatrick? No, it wasn't. It was Gray. So it's like, okay, whatever. But when I have the real book, I can do that. I can go back. If I have a Kindle, I might go back, but with the Lost Bookshop, I knew it was a Henry thing, so I looked in the chapters with Henry, so I knew where to look. In the Kindle, you don't know where to look, and in the Audible, you'd have to go back and re-listen, and if you didn't look, you weren't watching the timer on the thing, you would have no clue. So I enjoy real books more than anything else. But I think I told you that my brother-in-law got us the Audible subscription. So I started listening to Audible books. And now I'm at my job, I'm scanning papers. It doesn't take any brain. I just scan the papers, save them into the files. And so I'm listening to stories like 6 or 7 hours a day. So that gets me reading a lot more. So that's a benefit for that type of reading. So leave comments on if you read books, real books, or you read you listen to the Audible books, or you read Kindle books. Leave comments on that. And don't forget to visit my website, Mykela.com. Read some character bios. Send your writings and chapters to writewithmykela@gmail.com. Leave comments on your favorite characters. If you hit the like and subscribe and the bell notification, we will continue to write together, and other people will have a higher chance of finding this video and this channel, since your likes will push the video out to a greater audience. Thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate your participation. If you know someone who would like this video, please share it with them. This is Mykela with Write with Mykela. Bye for now.